So I decided to make another video about my trip to Cancun. I did 2 dives near Puerto Morelos, and I planned 2 dives in cenotes, but it ended up being 1. Here's a horseye jack on a shipwreck called C-45. This was a few miles offshore. I booked my dives with King Scuba out of Puerto Morelos. The maximum depth on this dive was about 90 feet. That kind of looks like a gun on the bow of the boat, but I'm not really sure what kind of boat it is. These horseye jacks were definitely curious. They swam up to us several times. Looking in the boat, you can see some snapper and corals. Here's a neat little fish with some spots. And a blue tang. For the second dive, we came in closer to shore at a spot, I believe it was called Los Jardines, or the Gardens. Here's some lobsters hiding under a rock, and a whole bunch of yellowfish. It looks like these fish are kind of trapped between 2 divers. Let's go find out what our guide is pointing out here. Something just winked at us. Nice rockfish. Some more lobster down here. And here's a nice looking trumpet fish. These are some beautiful reefs with nice fish. So we're finished with our ocean dives. Let's take a tour of the cenotes. A guide only had to drive me about 15 minutes. We took the Ruta de Cenotes. This was called Cenote Maravilloso. This was my first dive in a cavern. As soon as you pass through the narrow entrance to the cavern, it opens up into a huge chamber. I have an advanced dive certification, so I could go about 90 feet. The guide uses 2 tanks, but I only needed 1. I don't have a cave diving certification, but I hope to someday. This was just a cavern dive, not really a cave dive. You do have to be careful you don't go too deep. There's a layer of unpleasant chemicals at a certain depth. After we got to that depth, we didn't go any further. This was an early morning dive, so there wasn't too much light shining in. The rock formations and bubbles at the top of the cavern are pretty cool. These are stalactites hanging from the top of the cavern like icicles. This is a nice shot of light shining through the entrance. I see one little fish near the top of the cave. This is looking up from a much shallower depth. So unfortunately, after this dive, I had a lot of dizziness. The 2 dives the day before on a boat in the ocean didn't make me dizzy at all. So I guess I learned my lesson to always take motion sickness medicine. And at the bottom you actually see 2 fish. There was a turtle too. I talked to the guide and decided to skip the next more technical cenote. And when we got to this one, it was pretty cool, and I decided I would just walk around. I really didn't want to feel dizzy anymore. You can see the divers shining their lights down under the water here. Felt a little bit dizzy.